316 matches played in the 2018 spring split of the LPL. We still have one more best of 3 series to go before we can wrap the group stages of the regular split, the LPL, and then finally move into playoffs. And it wouldn't be the LPL if the final game did not matter. It's going to be EDG going up against BLG, and it's BLG's last chance to find themselves a bye during the quarterfinals. A win here would overtake Snake for second place in the Western Conference. Joining me now is going to be Clement Junianos, that's just jumped off a cast after that last match. Clement, BLG against EDG here. What is the first thing that you want to talk about?
The first thing I want to talk about is Clearlove, because he's coming back. Surprise, surprise. Now, if you just watched LPL this season, you might not know this, but EDG has been the most successful LPL team ever. 2016, 2017, they were our #1 seed representatives. But the EDG this season has taken a very hard hit. They're still #1 in the West, but nobody really sees them as a strong contender. Now with Clearlove back, they're trying to right that ship.
They certainly are. I mean, Clearlove's come back. They've even got cheerleaders out for him today, making sure that his entrance and welcome back is well deserved. He's going to be playing in the roster. It's not going to be Hara. We also have a substitute EDG position, which is Hope. We've already seen Hope play earlier in the split, so we'll talk about him a little bit later on. I really want to deep dive into Clearlove because we talked about it every single time EDG play. The fans will be asking, where is Clearlove? Is he coming back? There was silence from EDG, a couple of teasers here and there from players, streams, as well as their social media, and finally they announced he's going to come back and play here. They haven't told us if he's going to continue through playoffs. But what has been doing during this time? We know he's been practicing, but it's quite rare to see Clearlove disappear for such an extraordinary length of time on EDG.
Yeah, there really are two parts of it. The first part is trying to get his mentality back. They had been hit really hard by the community and by themselves after losing Worlds. That 0-3 start in the first week of Worlds was one of the biggest disappointments for this squad. So, you know, Clearlove did say publicly that he needed a bit of time to readjust his mentality. The second part is really honing onto his mechanics, and this is where it gets really interesting. We know Clearlove as some of the best macro players in the world. He's kind of like a Mata in that sense, where he controls all of the pieces on the map. But micro-wise, he has been taking a downward trajectory over the years. His Olaf, his Skarner have not been looking great, but unfortunately, those are the champions in the meta.
They certainly are. So we'll have to see if Clearlove has that extra micro ability to go with the macro play that he's known for that helps EDG out. He's kind of the opposite when it comes to Uzi. Uzi has fantastic international performs very well on the international stage and very well in international events. He's won back-to-back All-Star 1-on-1 championship. He just won the All-Star championship as well with the LPL squad. And now he's having a fantastic domestic split, something that doesn't really happen for Uzi. He normally doesn't do too well during those domestic splits. Clearlove's the opposite. During domestic splits, he is amazing to watch. And then he falters when he goes into the international split. Could this be something that tries to prepare him for that? Could this be him integrating back into the team, learning that he can have those fantastic international splits as well, and making sure that he peaks at the right time almost?
Definitely. This is a time where he is looking at a strong run into MSI, and if he can make it work, then he's going to be coming up as one of the most hyped storylines going into the tournament. But, of course, that's really, really high priorities for him. I just want to see him play a good game and fill out the missing links of EDG. EDG this split, a huge step back was that their coordination among their team members was completely lacking. If you think about Scout in previous seasons, if you think about Mako in previous seasons, they had a lot more things to tie them together, more action for them to do together, and Clearlove was the one that was directing all of that happening. With Haro on the helm, he's almost never at the right place at the right time, and EDG just looked like a mess comparatively.
And a good example of this, if you watch the matches where Haro was able to pick up MVP, or the games where he performed incredibly well, it looked like the old EDG squad. It looked like the squad when they had Clearlove on their roster. When Haro performs well, EDG was performing well. Potentially as well, Hara could play playoffs. We don't know yet. This might just be a one-off match for Clearlove to try and get back into competitive play. And if Hara plays playoffs, you have to still understand that Clearlove's on the roster. He's back with the game. He's back with the team. He's in the gaming house. He's backstage whenever they're preparing for games now. That could be the boost that Hara needs in the jungle, potentially the mentorship that he could need as well.
And this is exactly why I really like EDG's decision to play Clearlove today, because they're bringing in an X factor heading towards playoff. You don't know if he's actually going to play or not. Bringing him here introduces that possibility.
Yes.
And I do agree with bettering Haro's play as well. Haro, in his last set, he actually won double MVP. We saw that old glimpse of EDG where they were able to run the Zac Rakan combo multiple times. The support with Mako actually looked there, and a lot of people have been guessing, has that been a work of Clearlove really talking to him and structuring him how to play the game?
So it could help out EDG regardless if Clearlove continues with not only today's sets, or even if it's just one match to show. and also if it goes towards playoffs. Regardless of Hilo or Klilov playing, it could help out the EDG roster. That's not the only substitute that's coming in, so we have to talk about Hope as well. I've always been playing for most of the split for EDG. Hope has come in for a couple of matches, and EDG really changed their playstyle when they bring in Hope. It looks like a completely different squad. He doesn't live up to the caliber of mechanics when you look at iBoy, but when it comes to macro, again, it helps EDG. It's a part of the map where they've been lacking that macro ability.
Yeah, and the big point about Hope is that he doesn't need to be taken care of in the bot lane. You can leave them there. He's not really that important in terms of your overall team damage. A lot of that attention shifts to Scout then, and it frees up Mako to do roams, the big macro player that can finally get out of the bot lane. And I think that's the reason they're running Hope today. They want Clearlove and Mako as a duo back together more than they want iBoy and Mako.
Because that was one of the times we saw success coming out from EDG. When they allowed Hope to farm on his own and made sure that Mako could pretty much hold Haro's hand, walk through the jungle with him, invade and play aggressive with 4 members of the top side of the map, allowed EDG to set up for success. Now you'd have to think, Mako as well as Clearlove already had that synergy. They're already able to play well. If they can continue to do that with Hope, it could be a completely different style for EDG and perhaps a two-pronged attack from them. They could throw in iBoy when they need that mechanical prowess, or they can bring in Hope when they need more of a macro gameplay.
I would say it was just giving time for Hope, for Clearlove to really familiarize himself with Mako and doing that roam. And that roam is incredibly important in this patch. We've seen it in the SKT versus the KT games as well. The jungle and support are the ones that establish vision for you now that the jungler no longer has his tracking knife. So if you can get that duo on the map and unleash their power potential, then you could really take control over certain quadrants.
Well, we've halved and halved on EDG as well as their substitutes coming into this match. But remember, this game doesn't matter for them. Win or lose, they're still going to lock in first in their conference. They'll still get the semi-final bye, and we'll still see EDG at Rift Rivals alongside IG. The 2 other positions have not been locked in the LPL just yet. We'll have to see the rest of playoffs. But it does matter for this team. BLG are fighting for 2nd place in the Western Conference. A win here would allow them to propel over Snake, take that 2nd place, and get that extra bye. And it'll also put them into the RNG WE as well as IG side of the bracket. Taking a look at BLG's roster, Amazing J in the top lane, Chieftain and Mole, the 2 SU members were starting in the jungle as well as the mid lane with Jinjiao and Road, the AD carry and support.
Still running both of their newer members in Mole and Chieftain. I do expect this to be the case going forwards to playoffs.
And here we go. Everyone wants to see this. It's Ray in the top lane with Clearlove in the jungle. Scout heading into mid lane with Hope and Mako in the bottom lane.
I have never been so happy to see someone step out on stage. Clearlove is finally back. Sure, a lot of the international fans might not know the legend of Clearlove, but he is our #1 player in the LPL. The 001 is his code.
The first ever registered player in the LPL is what Clement is trying to say here. Clearlove is back and everyone is excited. A lot of fans in the audience ready to see his debut in the 2018 Spring League. Pep the Pig, get the heck out of here. I'm tired of seeing that.
So Clearlove does have 2 nicknames. One is the Destroyer for his performance on the Korean solo queue, and the other one is the Pig Farmer. And we don't really have time to go into that, but that is what the pigs are for.
Maybe later on we have some time to get into why Peppa Pig is so popular in the audience right now. But let's touch on BLG, because we said this is a match for them to try and pick up 2nd. A win here will allow them to propel over Snake. And they've had a decent split so far. They faltered during cross-conference, but the start and the end to the spring split have looked good for BLG.
They're incredibly good right now. They're actually 8-0 in their recent matches, and they're playing for the match against Jingdong or against RNG. There is a massive difference between those 2 teams. So this is a do or die must-win set for BLG going in.
It certainly is. On top of that, they just brought in Chieftain as well as Mole, replacing SKS and Athena in the mid lane. And they looked good with SKS and Athena. At times, we thought that SKS faltered a little bit. Athena looked a little bit slow in the mid lane almost, but they looked fine with those 2 in there. Chieftain and Mole, though, they stepped up. They looked even better than SKS and Athena, and they've been meshing with the roster rather well. They still play towards that late game playstyle. BLG are not afraid to take you to a late game team fight and go for a coin flip to win the match. But with those 2 new additions, their mid lane jungle synergy looks a lot better, and their early games look a lot stronger as well.
Yeah, it is about that early aggression that they're willing to apply, and about playing for that mid lane as well. Their draft structure has actually completely changed. They're actually going for counter picks for the mid lane now in Mole.
We're about to get into the first match of this best of 3 series. BLG, a win in this best of 3 will allow them to take 2nd place in their conference. Before we get into game number 1, let's hear from Mako about this match.
BLG 的话，之前他们也是一支喜欢围绕 AJ 打的一个队伍，然后现在加入了一个新的韩国打野和那个中国中单嘛，然后他们可能因为打野是韩国人的话，可能跟下路的沟通也会更顺畅。
Always great to hear from Maker. They're talking about the opposition today. But welcome to the caster desk. My name is Pauls. This is FLICKR. And how are you today? Because it wouldn't be the LPL without the very last series actually meaning something for playoff implications.
And this is totally scripted. The fact that I get to cast Clearlove's return game to the LPL, the very last one. Don't worry, boys and girls. If you don't know the story about Clearlove, gather round. Mama Frost is here.
Mama Frost will tell you all about it, but we'll have to fit it into the game because for now, we are going to get into Champion Select between EDG and Bilibili Gaming. Now, just to set the stage, Bilibili, if they take this game, they will secure second in their group and snag it from underneath Snake, who have been at the very top of their standings since week 1.
But the question is, do they actually want second? Yes, it's a bye, but then you place yourself on the side of death. You're in between WE, RNG, and Invictus Gaming. So BLG, I mean, they're on this upswing, but second might be punishing.
You're not wrong. Let's take a look at BLG's bands. It will be Olaf, Alistair, and Morgana coming through. EDG will take away Swain, Camille, and Gangplank. We are looking towards our first pick here from Bilibili.
And already you see 2 bans leveraged at Mako in particular. Again, the reason why EDG have been sitting top of the table has been Mako and his ability to pilot this team come late game. Clearlove has been entirely absent. Scout has been very inconsistent, and Ray is still finding massive growing pains with the team. So much has been on his weight, which is why not only are there 2 bans leveraged against him, he's priority pick.
And he locks in his own champion as well. It will be the Sejuani coming into the jungle here from Clearlove, and Mako, the veteran, also gets his Tam Kench coming in as well. The return of the king. We know what he's going to be picking in this first game.
And the return of the pig farmer himself. Now, Clearlove's fans are called piggies. Sejuani is, of course, a coveted pick for him, because guess what? She rides a giant pig.
There you go. It's not too much to write home on that one. BLG back over towards them. Rakan is open if they want to pick up the Lovers duo in the bottom lane here, and it will indeed be locked in. We're looking towards their final pick now in first phase from Bilibili.
And this should mean that EDG are going to be looking towards a scaling-oriented ADC or a very safe ADC, so that once post-level 6, Mako can unlock himself, start tag-teaming with Clearlove, and hopefully we can see this dynamic duo, the magic synergy of 2017.
Maybe that's why Hope is coming in as well. Eyeboy, you know he wouldn't sit quietly and pick a safe pick and just sit at his tower, you know. Maybe Hope is the guy who will be able to actually do that for the team and become that sponge in the bottom lane. BLG will lock in the all note for the top laner here, so Amazing J is just going to show his hand.
And this is also them understanding what EDG are drafting. They see a priority pick of a Tahm Kench. Hope comes in, he has played hyper carries before, so you grab the Ornn and you threaten. You say, if you play a hyper carry, we will punish it with this Ornn ultimate. I dare you.
EDG now looking towards the AD carry, flicking through a couple different picks. Ezreal, Caitlyn all do the job here if you just want to sit back, and Caitlyn will be the lock in for EDG here.
And we said it was about unlocking Mako. Not only do you have the safety and you can sort of compete with the pushing power of Rakan and Xayah, the Lovers duo will definitely still have the edge there, but Caitlyn also has the safety that when Tahm Kench decides to post level 6, unlock himself in the lane, start roaming around, that she'll be fine just sitting tight.
Sitting back, farming at that 650 range there for the Caitlyn. Now back to EDG for their bans, aiming at the jungle now towards Chieftain, taking away the Skarner. We haven't seen too many picks actually come out of Chieftain. It has really just been the Skarner coming out of him, so now he's going to have to play something new.
And I want to quickly touch on the communication that Mako was just talking about as we headed into this match. Yes, Chieftain is Korean, but the fact of the matter is that BLG have so much experience working with multiple different languages on their team. When they actually attended Worlds in 2016, not only did they have Korean members and Chinese members, they had Mandarin speakers and Cantonese speakers, and AJ had to work as a translator between Cantonese, between him and his jungler, into Chinese or into Mandarin and then into Korean.
That itself is very impressive, having to do that on the fly, and BLG, as you said, that will be something that they will be able to work around, and it has shown itself over the last couple of weeks of play as Chieftain and Mo have joined the roster. EDG will also take away the Jarvan towards Chieftain, so really just trying to get rid of all the Fangs in the jungle there, and BLG will aim towards Ray, taking away the Fiora and also taking away the Shen.
Ray has really made his name more so on the tanky picks for EDG. It's only recently that they've given him a lot more responsibility, allowing him picks like the Camille. The Cho'Gath makes sense. He's the #1 Cho'Gath player in our league currently. And again, this is a very standard EDG composition. You got your big 3 beefy tank line, and then dual threat ADC mid carry.
And it's important to note as well, Ray can play everything. He's picking up the Cho'Gath here, he's being a team player, role player, but he has over 20 different champions played in the top lane. The biggest of any top lane in the LPL. He can play literally anything under the sun and play it well. So it will be the Cho'Gath this time around. BLG looking towards their jungler. It will be Rek'Sai in for Chieftain here. And they are looking to follow up with their mid laner as well.
It's pretty ballsy, picking Rek'Sai into Clearlove of all people.
Yeah.
If I had to say, Yes, he's known for his Sejuani because he is the pig farmer, but Rek'Sai is definitely right up there, so he knows the champion inside and out.
For sure. I remember last year when ClearLove hopped back onto the team, it was Rek'Sai coming out, even though Rek'Sai was not in the meta. So he still managed to win that game. That being said, still had the mechanics, knew exactly how that champion could work and in the composition as well. Rise was the pickup there for Mole into the mid lane. Now EDG get the counter pick here for Scout, and it will be Taliyah. And I've really loved Scout's Taliyah recently. It's one of the reasons why it has been banned against him constantly, but it's up in this one.
And the fact is that EDG's composition rounds out everything this team is good at. It has your ability to siege because you have the Taliyah wall as well as the range from the Caitlyn, and has the ability to make very quick cross-map plays with the mobility of Taliyah and mobility of Tahm Kench. And this is where EDG are very punishing. When they have ClearLove, when they have Mako piloting the entire squad and the map is open, they are one of the smartest and most decisive teams in the LPL.
And you can say that one of the pieces maybe was missing throughout the entirety of the Springs, but having Haro in the jungle, being a jungler you actually have to play around, because when he joins the play, many things went awry. But this time you have ClearLove. You know that the jungle is going to be solid. You have many different avenues in which you can find your way into this game. So I'm personally just excited to see how EDG move around the map in this game.
It's also the fact that they know each other so intimately. This is little brother versus big brother. These two organizations used to be sister teams. Of course, Bilibili buying out IMA, separating, killing the sister teams, but they scrim all the time. They live very close to each other, and they're good friends, have shared a roster across. AJ started for EDG in 2016, so it's definitely going to be a lot of smiles.
Different names, same people. AJ is absolutely going to remember all of the bloodshed that's happened before in this rivalry. And back to BLG as well, you know, they've really gotten to the point where they are also performing at full power. They're already a good team before they introduced Chieftain and Mole, but with that introduction, now they're looking even better.
And it comes down to the new win conditions. This is Chieftain versus ClearLove. Now, he has defined himself as an early game blitzing jungle, which is why lane or draft priority is so important for BLG. They have massive lane priority with the Xayah and Rakan, which means Chieftain has a highway to start shooting into ClearLove's jungle and contesting him. But can he go toe-to-toe with the king?
And you know he will. He will just arrive in the enemy jungle. You may not even see him walk there. He'll just appear and they'll be fighting the enemy jungle. But you're absolutely right. He's playing into ClearLove. He's back. He's been watching from the sidelines all split. We've joked he was getting closer and closer to the stage, and now he's actually sitting in that seat. Let's see if he can take this victory over BLG today.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, I guess that's the end of it.
I guess BLG just
don't
got
don't get a chant. And as you can see, the audience is packed. Everyone just came in their troves just to see EDG play today, and specifically to see ClearLove, as you can see in this pit right here.
And no beating around the bush. ClearLove suffered a devastating loss at Wuhan. He is from Wuhan. He stood in front of his home crowd, in front of his family and friends, and he had a collapse at World. Devastating loss against SKT. I thought for certain it was going to be retirement for ClearLove. He disappears. Haro takes over for 99% of the split. The camera just showed him sitting there. It's not smiling ClearLove. It's not joking around, looking at Mako, looking like he's happy to be back. He's kind of wringing his hands. He has a very serious face, grabs a comfort pick for him, and I feel like this is go time. Can he actually still do this?
Oh yeah, it absolutely is go time for EDG. Yes, they're locked in with their position right now in first in the Western Conference, but this is a matchup where you'll always see the teams play up. Regardless of who's on the team, what time of year it is, no matter what the stakes are, these teams will fight tooth and nail to try and get the win over each other.
And the last time that BLG and EDG faced, because again, our system is a double round robin best of 3, EDG knocked off BLG's winning streak. They had been undefeated in the LPL. They ran into their big brother. It wasn't ClearLove, it was Haro, and they fell flat on their face. Question: are Chieftain and Mole enough for BLG to make a deep playoff run? Because they're playing up, they just took down WE, they just took down Snake, and they actually look like the second best team in their conference.
Sample size would say yes, Frosk. Over the last couple of weeks, they are on a 4-series winning streak, and they've been surging up the standings for BLG right here. So Mole Chieftain has been a large part of that, giving them an early game against all the rest of the teams in the league. You know, that was one of the major problems they had. And when you play in the LPL, everyone plays fast and hard, and you don't have an early game, then you're never going to be even when you go into the mid game.
Which is why, again, draft is so important, getting those priority, getting those pushing champions. We see that Rise has minion dematerializer. He's going to start controlling the wave as he gets more points in those abilities. Yes, it's always hard to compete with Taliyah's wave clear, but if he can start chipping away some of that health, threatening her for just pushing around. And then likewise, you can already see that Orin has started his damage onto Cho'Gath, forcing him in. So where will this create space for Chieftain, and what will he do with the information?
And it's around now he'll start to move into the enemy jungle and try and make that happen. You can see a lot of the support going over to EDG in this one for sure, but BLG, their fans are still here. I'm looking towards Chieftain though. He's moving into that top jungle. There are no Raptors, there's no red buff, but he is able to get some information, placing down that deep ward.
Yeah, they understand exactly where both of them are. You can actually see the pings go down on Clearlove. This is actually interesting, though. Clearlove's not pushing forward for any more vision. He placed a rather shallow trinket ward, I believe. Oh, nope, he actually cancels his back. I was going to say, it was going to reset his map positioning very quickly and possibly look for a gank. But I think the read is that it's going to be a Krug trade.
Ward over the wall, and Clearlove will know if anyone moves towards it, but nice heads-up play here from BLG. They move towards the Krugs just in case Clearlove jumps over the wall, and will protect this one.
Yep, naturally, of course, it's much harder to contest blue side Krugs because you are closer to 2 people as opposed to 1 person on red side.
And a top laner, especially tanks, aren't going to do a whole lot to you in the early game anyway, so you're not going to be too scared of that one. And plus the Cho'Gath was being pushed in. So in the bottom lane, that's going to cost just a couple minions over to Jinjiao and Road. But I will highlight the fact that Hope is getting the push off here. You know, we've seen a lot of these Zyra-Khan matchups completely destroy Caitlyn's in the early game around that level 1. But it seems like EDG have played this one safe.
And a lot of that does have to do with Mako. He's always very conservative with his positioning as Tahm Kench. You know, when someone like Road, who's playing the Rakan in this instance, plays the Tahm Kench, he's forward. He's looking for those tongue lashes. He's trying to find the gobble. Mako understands that the trading power in this lane is between the Caitlyn. She's just going to chip away, she's going to control the wave, and all he needs to do is step back and wait to catch her.
He's got a small glimpse there into Chieftain's runes as well. He's picked up Press the attack actually on Rek'Sai in this one, seeing that more and more in the jungle nowadays. Saw it last game as well, actually on Fiora. So more and more people moving towards this keystone.
And again, there is a bit of a timer on Chieftain. He needs to make sure that this Rek'Sai pick counts in the early game. She usually goes for more of that offensive build, went for the offensive rune mastery set, and she's not going to scale as well as someone like a Sejuani, who's going to bring so much more utility and frontline tankiness into these late game fights. So needs to be proactive, and the big lane that he wants to play around is actually the mid lane. He wants to get off with this Rise, find the targetable lockdown CC, and punish this Taliyah.
Rise right now is constantly pushing up the mid lane. He's already backed, picked up his tier. Likewise, Scout has done the same. But Clearlove probably recognizing this. He's actually going to step over Control Ward right now, but he is playing towards the mid lane. There is nothing in his jungle to farm. Actually, nothing in BLG's farm, jungle to farm either. We take a look at some of Clearlove's career stats, and obviously he's had quite a long career in the LPL. I believe he was 001 named in the LPL, the very first player to be locked into the roster, and of course that comes with many kills, many deaths, and many assists.
He most recently lost the first place award for most assists. I believe Mako now has it. So unfortunately, Mako's not is starting today, so Clearlove can't take it back from him in this one series.
Unless Mako has 0% kill participation for the next 10
He
games.
waits until the support doesn't get the assist and then secures the kill.
Yeah, for sure, Clearlove has some catching up to do. That was a couple of weeks now, and Rowe takes so much damage in the bottom lane. Hope comes in with the final auto attack, and that will send him packing. Go back to base right here for his first back of the game. But Scout, he's level 6, and the pressure goes onto the Dragon as well from Clearlove. So that pressure in that 2 versus 2 translates into this Dragon.
When Clearlove was the primary jungler for EDG, they had the #1 objective or monster objective control in the league, but not Baron, Dragon specifically. They have always been a very Dragon-oriented team when he was their jungler, so immediately you see him back in the lineup, and it's a 6-minute 30 Ocean Dragon, and that is so important to the lane phase because having that region really does matter.
You really feel it. Same for Cloud Dragon nowadays as well. It's one of the things that you really feel just in the trades in lane. But Chieftain not really getting onto the map so far, and Clearlove has just kind of won out over time.
And it's not for lack of trying. You can already see the offensive vision pressed into Clearlove's jungle. Chieftain has been quite mobile, you know, moving around the Raptor camp, denying Krug camp, placing down vision, trying to secure a highway and a safety net for AJ up in the top lane, who again is the shot caller for BLG, so definitely an important member to protect. But Clearlove is just, they've just kind of been avoiding each other. You know, this isn't a crash course of 2 hunters going toe-to-toe. This is more like 2 trackers dancing around.
Currently, EDG's tracker is winning out on that one. I will highlight the fact that there is a large CS disparity in the top lane opening up. We haven't seen a whole lot of it, but into that Cho'Gath matchup, very interesting to see that Amazing J is really getting the better of that one. 3 waves is pretty significant over Ray.
He does have a big wave push, or he did have a big wave pushed into him. But yeah, you are right. We don't normally see Ray fall down this far. Maybe he just had a bad bounce on a tower or something. Unfortunately, weren't able to look up there and check what was happening.
Well, sure. Generally, it does have those mechanics to win out, even against some players like the Shy. All about those mechanics. Mo is, caught between a rock and a Sejuani, and the lead from Clearlove finds the predict and locks down first blood for Scout.
And the thing is look at how much vision BLG had in the river to make the safety. Mole felt so confident making that play right there, but the distance that Sejuani was able to cover and the predict from Clearlove to secure the kill.
That was beautiful. There's nothing else to say about that one. And that very first kill, almost like fate, almost like poetry. Clearlove picks this one up and also donates the blue buff over to his mid laner.
And you can see it. Look at Clearlove now and Scout. What was once very serious, you've now cracked a smile. And I say this all the time. If you want to shake EDG, you crumble and you hit Clearlove first. Because if he falls, they will fall apart with him.
You hit the morale. You make sure it goes down. But now we have Mako and we have Clearlove. So if one goes down, we have a backup system in place if you're EDG.
It's basically like Uzi. If Uzi is ever smiling, that's the most terrifying moment you've had. Because if he's having fun, you are not having fun.
Yeah, he'll be constantly pushing. We hear from Uzi all the time. You know, he absolutely plays to win that laning phase, beat them down. We get to see that fantastic prediction from Clearlove once more.
It was also great zone control from Scout to force Mole over there and deny kind of his angle and his pathway out of the lane, forcing him to flash because of where the pebbles had been stacked. So again, we talked about Scout having these inconsistencies. He doesn't look like he's in sync with Haro. Immediately at 8 minutes in the game, looks so much better.
It's a stark difference. It's literally night and day for us, Kieran. Like, we haven't seen Scout really mesh with, to be honest, we haven't really seen any lane mesh with Haro. He moves top lane, he dies, and then Razor's like, damn, I guess I lost laning phase. So in this one, for sure, it just sounds like Clearlove is fitting into their team perfectly.
Yeah, Haro had some ridiculous stat, like most deaths to top laners of any jungler.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. It definitely messed up Ray's stats for certain, but he's been growing over this last split.
This is a bottom line dive.
Now coming in, yeah, it absolutely is. Here comes Scout and Clearlove.
The EDG special, 10 minutes on the clock.
We've got the Talia wall ready to go, all summoners as well, apart from Clearlove's flash. Chieftain is waiting in the wings though, he will be here for the counter gank, but it's 3 versus 4. BLG don't really want this one, and we are sieging up if you're EDG. Here comes the teleport, and the engage out from road. Great quickness usage, but it's maybe a little bit too early. Amazing J with the Ornhorn coming through, finds the Chipple knockup right now. Gobble up from Mako, saves the Sejuani, throws him back to safety, and a flick finds the kill. There's a kill over to Hope, and EDG pushing back BLG to the tower now. Fantastic root caller. Will managed to stop a couple members from EDG, or the blade caller rather, and BLG under this tower. EDG are still aggressing, as that will be the dash away from the Ornn. Scout is low.
Ooh, on a nice edge right there, but they're going to hang around. They've got enough health bars, and they force BLG off the tower, so it should be first structure to EDG, and it looks like they're going to give Hope majority of the gold. Can they hold it with this TP?
Oh, BLG committing another teleport to bottom lane. This will be Rose right here, finding a knockup onto Hope as well. Mako gets the save, and now he has to wander out of here, but he will be the sacrificial catfish, and Hope has to flash as well. Here's Clearlove to try and defend his AD carry, and Ray also had to cycle back towards the bottom lane to try and protect this one. Another knockup. Chieftain finds the AD carry.
Excellently played by BLG to find the edge back into that fight. They expend a lot of summoner spells, multiple teleports used, not just in the initial flank, but in the follow-up to punish the greed from Hope and Mako. I thought they were going to get the tower. BLG thought otherwise.
I was impressed with the amount of summoners still left up from BLG. That was multiple flashes used on Hope to lock him down after the play happened in the bot side. Plus the teleport. BLG knew they can make it happen.
But I can already tell you, Pulse, that we are going to have an excellent 5v5 team fighting game. Both these teams are known for it. When Clearlove is with EDG, they've always been about their 5v5. Since their inaugural split in 2014, they were actually called Baby Blue after Samsung Blue because they couldn't lane, but they could 5v5. And BLG, they have always been the late game 5v5.
Scout putting pressure down onto Mole, looking for the flick as well, forces him back into him, and there is the threaded volley for the kill, the 1v1 outplay.
And just in time, the 2018 LPL mid lane stats. You could see that Mole was first in everything. Not anymore.
Definitely hurt those stats just a little. Have to update those after that play in the mid lane.
Drop it down, change the numbers.
Yeah, it's going to be different for sure. And Scout, I mean, this is one of the reasons why his Talia has been banned away against him so many times in recent weeks. You know, we saw his Azir, we saw his Talia, we're like, not really sold on the Azir, but his Talia has been so excellent, not only in terms of mechanics, but roaming to those side lanes and making action happen for EDG.
It is by far his best champion. And what's kind of interesting about Scout is he really excels on champions that have gap closers or speed, which Talia doesn't seem like she would fit into that. But like Syndra, which is also one of Scout's better champions, she has the ability to do damage while kiting. Because Scout is a very aggressive player. He's always going to step forward, he's never going to step back. So you can empower that type of behavior and that play style by giving him champions that when they do step forward, they are constantly outputting that damage.
And he just showed it in the 1 versus 1 in the mid lane as well. And it's unfortunate that all of the kills so far in this game have actually been on Mole. No matter where he goes, what play he turns up to, he's the person dying. He is the martyr, fortunately for BLG. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, the tower did eventually go down. Hope picked up the gold for that one, so that Caitlyn is scaling well into the mid game now. In fact, he is also leading on farm as well when you compare him to Jin Zhao. So overall, the draft makes sense, and it's also executed well in-game from EDG.
And it's also a good example of what Clearlove, or what type of jungler Clearlove is. He's a control-oriented jungler. This wasn't heavy ganking. Yes, he did make a gank onto the mid lane, but it's been much more about securing both Scuttle Crabs pretty much at all times, and then placing deep or defensive jungle vision to create these safety nets for his lanes. Because EDG have always been a strong laning team. For the longest time, this is actually probably the very first split, they haven't had just the strongest and best laners, and all Clearlove has ever had to do is just protect them, because they will expose themselves by constantly being pushed forward, by constantly pressing their advantage, so you just need to be there for the counter gank or give them the vision information so they can stay safe.
And this is a different EDG that you had to play up against if you're BLG, you know, coming in here expecting what was EDG that you saw all the way through the swing split. But this is a very different team that we're watching right here. And, you know, you look towards Chieftain and Mo and saying, well, their constant aggression in the early game has often opened up advantages for BLG, but that's been completely neutralized by Clearlove, and EDG actually hold the advantage as we crest the 14-minute mark.
And the fact of the matter is that BLG have never been tested yet. Yes, they have these new members, but you're starting to see those growing pains where the, you know, anti-synergy, if you will, is starting to crop up, or maybe some of the communication issues because they are newer members is cropping up. I mean, Mole and Chieftain only started, what, week 7?
Yeah, not long ago. It was at the very start of the win streak, though, so there is correlation, causation, whatever you want to call it. But,
oh, definitely.
In the mid lane, that's a banner of command actually picked up by Ray, and he's just put it in the mid lane. Scout getting aggressed up, but here's the counter guy coming in from Clearlove. Locks down Chieftain, flash away from their Scout. Probably going to die here. Yeah, Chieftain picks up the kill alongside Mole, but now having to kite back towards the tower because Clearlove is hungry for a return kill. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Horns gets sounded and moves on to Hope. He's completely by himself. His support went roaming, and his AD carry dies.
But Ray and Clearlove and Mako will crash. They will have a trade of the tower. That said, still tempo advantage for BLG. In fact, they could try to get some damage up on the top tower. You see it pinged, although Xayah needs to be careful because Kench still has ultimate, I believe. Nope, has used it.
A mid tower also down from that play as well. So while BLG managed to crack a top lane tower, EDG still leading in this one. Gold has equalized off of that play, however, and we can see actually what happened in the top lane.
And this is actually a perfect example of a lot of EDG's different faults. A, you have so much action happening in the mid lane because Scout is pressed forward. It's like what I was just saying. His laners are always going to be forward. Clearlove just has to make sure that he's there for the counter gank. He was, but Mako is also the primary pilot of EDG. He does all of the macro shot calling, he does all of the vision control. As soon as he leaves his AD carry alone, dead. Just dead in the water.
But you've got to think that call has come out as it's like, okay, Hope, I'm leaving. I'm going out for cigarettes. Make sure that you don't push up. That's, if you have one job, just don't push up. Unfortunately, Hope got caught off in that one. But props to the bot lane from BLG, managing to get that one in the end. And now this game has equalized just a little, trying to give BLG the potential to go into that mid game at least even. And that is one of the core differences we have seen out of this team recently.
Yeah, and I feel like the X factor or the make or break is going to be around this Rek'Sai versus Sejuani. A lot of these break points on the champions are very similar. Xayah versus Caitlyn, it's about execution and team fight. Probably the largest difference is Taliyah versus Ryze late game. Taliyah's damage output, she's going to be more about the utility, whereas Ryze is going to be that raw damage. And then the Rek'Sai versus Sejuani, you know, the utility again versus the backline dive threat or the knockup.
Clearlove still making plays in the mid lane, locks down Bro, but that's the instant cleanse. Quickness comes out and manages to CC a bunch of EDG, but they are still aggressing. That wall coming in from Scout doesn't quite lock down Ro, but Jin Zhao is actually turning this one around now onto Mako. Here comes the Ornhorn once again, looking for the cutoff, and finds 4 members of EDG, and they are not winning in this retreat. Multiple members are going to get stranded in the midst of BLG, and Mako underneath this tower still being died. Void Rush for the double kill out from Chieftain, and Ray rocks up to the mid lane without a team.
And it was the King Clearlove that started off that fight and punished EDG, led them down the rabbit hole, and AJ closed the trap. Beautiful flank from the Ornn means that they have priority in the mid lane. The tower surely will fall, and now it's a question of what else do BLG take on the map.
Huge collapse coming in for BLG, and this is the first time they've had the lead in this game, swinging ahead, plus they take the outer mid lane turret as well, and if we're not even, we are absolutely ahead of your BLG.
And one of the weirdest byproducts of picking up Chieftain and Mole is the fact of how much better Jin Zhao looks. before grabbing this new jungle mid-duo for BLG, they were constantly at a 5-6k gold disadvantage, and it showed up mostly on Jin Zhao. Yes, he just plays this phenomenally well by stalling out long enough and putting the damage back. Beautiful use of the Xayah ultimate, but Jin Zhao is suddenly not playing from a massive gold deficit. He has the same items as the enemy ADC, and look at how much damage and work he can do for you if you give him into a fight on the same playing field.
And also means the backbone is still there. AJ still comes in with those fantastic teleport flanks, and out of Fog of War, managed to pick up 4 kills and a mid lane tower, and just toppling EDG's aggression right there. And it's actually funny because Scout brought up the wall. It meant that everyone had to literally funnel into Jin Zhao, into a Xayah. And he was just like, this is great. This is literally the Xayah dream right here.
The one place that Xayah wants to be is when people are running forward, so she can punish them with the feathers that are obviously behind them at this point.
Felt good, man. Now BLG will look towards the Herald, try and knock down another tower, maybe even an inner tower now, because that is where they will start to struggle, try and knock down those deeper towers in EDG's base.
Yeah, and it's awesome the fact that they get a 19-minute Herald, and like you were saying, that they now get to use it on an inner structure. They could also just try to place it cross-map and use it as a big pressure point to play around and look towards burning the Baron.
Yeah, like a big cannon minion in the bottom lane, and someone's
The
got to do a
Cannon
bit in it. Yeah, I like to call him Cannondorf. I feel like he's beastly enough to deserve that title. But Amazing J is pushing down this bottom lane in this tower. While it's nearly full health, we have multiple members of BLG about to collapse in the area, so probably not long for this world.
There's your Cannondorf right there.
There he is.
And we've talked a lot about Clearlev's redemption story. AJ's pretty much on the same crash course. You know, from 2016, he was immediately removed from EDG, had a horrific Worlds experience, doesn't have a great international reputation, came back and said, I'm gonna take IMA to Worlds. Did it in his first split. He's now got Bilibili Gaming. It's the exact same roster, save for this new jungle mid-duo, and he's just been chugging along and proving himself that you overlooked me, I am a true star top laner.
And BLG in this rotation, seems like they've caught EDG unawares that they look for the engage underneath the tower as well. Might be a bit ambitious though, Clearlove in with the counter engage, but the Ornhorn finds 4 once more. Amazing J, it's a good disengage if they can find it, but BLG are looking for the opportunity to re-engage. Those front lines, you're absolutely right, Frost, will not go down.
The Abyssal Mask doing so much work for AJ right there. He's looking at Talia, Cho'Gath, and Sejuani, so he's getting a lot of bang for his buck, and he just cannot kill that Ornn.
Completely unstoppable. He's actually racked up 7 assists in this game, and all of that has just gone towards tanky items here for Amazing J. But with a push in the bottom lane, that's 2 towers, an outer bot lane tower, an inner bot lane tower, and the dragon. BLG are picking up so much from this.
Okay, but now the plan is, of course, we're going to be starting to play around the Baron. And this is where a lot of the LPL teams start to fall short. How can they get their vision correct? How can they micromanage the top and mid lane wave? And when do they choose the best time to go for the Baron? A steal would be absolutely devastating, and we have seen it time and time again. I believe we have something like 30 steals in the LPL.
Yeah, it's there's a percentage that's higher than 10%, and that's not a percentage that you want to be running if you're a team in the LPL for sure, but it's a statistic. It does exist.
JD
but this,
Gaming boosting that
That's
stat.
exactly what I was going to say. This isn't JD Gaming that we're seeing here, though. To be fair, they go more with the coin flip. Even if they're behind, sometimes they just get Barons themselves. So BLG, we've generally seen that their Baron setup has been much better.
And what's cool here is that EDG actually have a great stall composition. We talk about this all the time. Their ability to stall around the red side Raptor camp, because it goes into these choke points. You have a Talia, you have a Sejuani. That's exactly where you want your big damage to be front loaded. But with Ryze has his Realm Warp, and he can actually break that choke point because he forces his team not to go up through it, but to go around it. So all my eyes are actually on Mole and how his ultimate will be used to either teleport them quickly to Baron if EDG are out of position, or break this red Raptor hold.
That's another thing for EDG to try and play around. However, they are setting up a classic Death Rush in their jungle underneath this control ward, but that is spotted out by Chieftain. He's making sure that BLG will not drop to any cheesy little ganks out here from EDG as they are just sitting in these random bushes. But Scout's in the top lane by himself, and BLG hanging around the mid lane, seeing if they can find a pick up their own.
They've aggressively moved their vision forward, so now EDG have to face check as a unit. Mako, you can see going first. But Ray is actually still pretty far from the team, doesn't have a lot of options for TP wards. I think he's got 1 in the Baron and 1 behind red.
Yeah, but it will take him a long time to get to that fight because he's unfortunately quite a slow Cho'Gath. That being said, he has now joined the team, so we'll be here if anything erupts. And Scout waiting in the wings as well with the ultimate.
Yeah, so what Scout's doing is he's making sure to prevent the flank.
And the 4-man Ornhorn once again. Amazing J just doesn't stop with the CC train. And Chieftain buys a bit of time using a Void Rush, and he's into the backlines onto Mako. We've already lost hope, and the AD carry being down from EDG. They have to look towards damage control, and they lose another member in the form of Mako. 2 picks to BLG. BLG, they swing towards Baron.
Absolutely devastating. They know that they chipped down Clearlove. Now, Clearlove does have Flash, but he's making his base right now. It'll take him at least 30 seconds to walk from base towards the Baron. I think this is BLG's for free.
And you can see EDG, they're not interested. They know that they can't find the steal, so Scout instead moves towards the mid lane, guides in the mid wave. Raid does the same thing in the bottom side of the map, and BLG will secure themselves the first Baron of the game at 23 minutes into this one, and they have a 7,000 gold lead over EDG heading into mid game.
And how often do you ever get to say that of BLG? This is the team that spent 90% of their split constantly playing from a gold deficit. It was just these miracle teleporting flanks that would find them wins here and there. They have completely changed up their identity, and any team looking across them in playoffs should be afraid. And it was a teleport, or not a teleport flank, but a flanking play and another great Ornn ultimate, as well as a follow-up from a great Rakan.
And see how long EDG are CC'd here. There's literally nothing they can do because the AD carry is dead before he even hits the ground. So EDG immediately, their plans to back away.
And the mentality there was sound from EDG. They knew that they had to force the mid lane forward because they need to flush BLG out of the side flanking areas away from the Baron. But the positioning was wrong. That was very similar to how SKT destroyed EDG when they found them with the massive shockwave, and it was Mako that was out of position. Because you know that the big, massive CC is going to come forward. Mako needs to be able to gobble up the primary target and move them to safety. If he's standing with the rest of EDG, which he was when SKT blasted them, he can't do anything to help them.
He's going to be caught up in the CC as well, unfortunately. BLG now moving back onto the map, fanning out, bringing members to the bot lane, to the mid lane. It's going to be a bit of a 1-4 split here from BLG as they send Mole into that bottom lane. Chieftain is the one in rotation. He's just poking away, waiting for this minion wave to come in. And I've set up shop. Here comes the battering ram. And EDG, they need to try and get towards this cannon minion.
They basically
the flick will help.
Need a miracle. A key ultimate or a flick, some sort of hard CC has to land on Jin Zhao. Because right now BLG's composition is just ahead of them. It's going to run away with the game. You have Zeke's completed. You have Xayah who's closing in on 3 items. She's almost got her Infinity Edge complete. And you have a massive Ryze who's looking at, I believe, a death cap.
That's what it looks like.
No, he needs 2 needless.
Yes, he's not needlessly away, but he's big. That's what we're trying to get at. He's a big Ryze in the mid lane. BLG find themselves another tower now, move towards the top side. The last remaining inner tower now from EDG should be a free take theoretically for them, and EDG should be trying to hold the line now around the inhibitors, but all the time that they can use to slow down BLG would obviously be to their benefit.
Just running out of time about how they want to play their composition if it's just a fair 5v5 front-to-back fight. Now it's going to come to outplay potential, and we've seen miracles from EDG, but we've never seen a BLG this strong before.
And EDG, it's difficult for them to make those plays, like finding a flank nigh on impossible with BLG's control over that jungle, so it will have to be front to back, and just incredible mechanics in the moment to outplay into BLG. Because right now they are playing this perfectly.
Eyes on Clearlove. He's the big go button. He's supposed to be the veteran to ground a struggling EDG. And if he loses, if he comes in after not playing the split and then loses in game 1, especially the way that EDG are frankly getting thrashed around this map, that can be a huge morale swing. Here he goes.
Maybe swing this one all the way around, finds the ultimate onto Ro, but he cleanses out of this one, and now he's caught underneath the tower. Mole, not a care in the world, still pushing the bottom lane, and BLG, they counteract the engage.
And that may actually just be it. It wasn't a battle cry from EDG, it was but a whisper. A beautiful cleanse immediately resets any sort of fight that EDG wanted to start. Round 2.
Actually knocking Mole and Road into the team. They've got a bit of time, but Beam Me Up's got to get me out of here. But here comes the teleport actually in from Amazing J. No, doesn't want that one. Moves towards the mid lane, and in rotation, BLG get a lot of damage on this tower. EDG looking for the chance to go in on this one. They've lined up the traps, but feeling a bit hesitant. And with the Ornn coming in, it's actually BLG looking for the right here. Hope takes a bunch of damage, and he has to back away from this one. The focus is now on the inhibitor, and BLG, they get their prize.
So clean from BLG. You would not be able to look at this team and say, their jungler is brand new. He's Korean. They'll probably have language translation issues right now. The ability to drag EDG from mid to bottom, back again, burning up key ultimates, chunking away massive pieces of health, and then just snatching objectives and disengaging.
It is. It's just clean, smooth play from BLG.
And Jin Zhao, he's 4-0-5. Road is 2-0-6. When have you ever seen BLG's bot lane deathless? These guys feed relentlessly all the time.
wasn't their fault, okay? This game proves that. It's just music to my ears to see a scoreline like that from BLG's bottom lane.
And you know, at the top of the day, I do give Road my award for most improved player, because before he frankly was a liability. Road, I believe Rusty fondly refers to him as the Wanderer, as in he likes to roam a lot, but he doesn't really have a direction with his wandering, which is why Yoon gets to be the traveler. He's got a destination in mind. But Road now, especially with his synergy with his Korean jungler, because Road is Korean as well, it's just picture perfect. And you can see how devastating he can be on a champion like Rakan. Multiple, you know, 4-man, 5-man quickness engages with beautiful follow-up from AJ.
And I'll be honest, while I'm sad that you didn't call your awards the Frostkers, I do agree with your point there that Road has been massively improved, and he's always been a playmaker. You know, when you look at Road, you look towards the Rakan picks, you look towards the big plays, even the Thresh, you know Road's going to do something, and sometimes he finds the hook onto the wrong member and he goes in, but it's always going to be hype when you watch Road play.
And it may mean that, you know, EDG are kind of hamstrung, that they need to start denying picks like the Xayah so Road can't freely take something like a Rakan, because he is such a pivotal piece for BLG to start these fights. And again, BLG's identity, they start fights, they love to 5v5, they have massive kill participations across the team. Everyone is joined up in them.
It's just the best of an already good situation for BLG. If you're ahead and then you're also good at team fighting, then most likely you're going to stay ahead.
Deny
That's what's
them
happening in this game.
These engage champions.
It's got to happen because these engages out from Amazing J have been fantastic all game long. 0-0-9, but he's always been about those ultimates. And here we see another one down onto Hope, who will get the knockup once again. But Mako with the save. However, the main objective is the tower here from BLG, and they are slowly chipping away at that one. They have Mole in the mid lane, and Scout is doing his best to clear it, but it feels like a matter of time unless EDG can get the fight of the century.
Yeah, backs against the wall. Again, we're looking at Clearlove. He has to hit a key ultimate, and Road strikes first.
He's already into the back line, gets a knockup onto Mako and Hope, and they're actually onto the tower right now. BLG trying to find this objective, but there's multiple members low. Jinjiao and Rhoda out of this fight, and the tank line don't have any damage themselves. Scout moves forwards, and so much damage out from the Blade Caller may send him packing. Clearlove still on the front lines. He's seeing if he can find anything for his team. Enable Hope, but BLG, they back away, and Mole heads to the mid lane to push in this minion wave.
Ooh, we're getting a bit antsy there. Road maybe pulling the trigger a bit too quick there. Quickness, get it?
Yeah,
it was funny, Pulse.
I see. Next time I'll remember.
It was funny.
BLG are not going to manage to find a tower on that one, but they still got a lot of ground on EDG. And every time they push up to those towers, EDG are unable to find those perfect ultimates, the perfect engage for themselves. And here comes the Abyssal Voyage, actually. Mako protecting the Raptor camp here with Clearlove.
But this is the situation that EDG want to be on. Their comp is still really hard to fight when they're pressed onto their tower like that, and they need to chase into BLG's comp. Again, you're then chasing into someone like a Xayah, like a Ryze. They want to be in the open here.
Here comes the Ram. It's about to find 3 members of EDG. BLG not in range to engage, though.
Yeah, and they're just waiting for Clearlove's ult. It's about to come back up, and now that's a very key ultimate down from AJ. Again, captain, shot caller of the squad. Also the other big primary engage tool next to Road. I think this is probably the best window for EDG if they want to mount a comeback. It starts within the next 30 seconds.
It's a relatively short window because Ornn's ultimate, as you just said, is going to come off cooldown rather quickly. It's already about halfway done.
Which is why what BLG are doing is brilliant. They immediately spread up. They say, let's not even force a 5v5. Everyone play really safe. We're going to force all of the waves, force EDG to respond to the pressure that we're creating on the map. Wait for my Ornn ultimate to be back up, and then we'll group back for a 5v5. Ryze is down in the bottom. Ornn went to the top side of the lane. Great read from BLG to recognize EDG are hunting. They want it now. Let's deny.
It's all this macro play that we're seeing from BLG. I'm seeing so many more facets from this team that we just honestly haven't gotten the chance to see because of generally being behind this. It's like, well, our comeback moment is this team fight, and then we win the game off the team fight, and that's literally it. But now we actually get to see what BLG are capable of when you have this game where you're trying to deny resources from EDG, and that was beautifully done. Now AJ has his ultimate back up, and EDG are back to square one.
When they don't just automatically lose lane. Here it comes.
It was pretty good. Ray caught off into the side. He'll flash over the wall. Cho'Gath is very tanky, though. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, looking for a pick onto Mole, though. Good Rune Prison will keep Clearlove in place, and that's a lot of damage coming out of this ride right now. Ornn comes in and locks up Scout, looking for the knockup as well, but Road backs away from this one. Chieftain a little too deep, gets crit over the wall, and Hope looking for the kill, but doesn't quite find it, and Mako is down. EDG looking to head back to the base now. Flash out from Hope as well to open up some distance. There was an Ornn on his face, but he won't get out of there.
It just feels like EDG don't have the damage to deal with the massive front line between the between the Rek'Sai and the Ornn. They can't press forward. They can't even kill Mole.
They absolutely can't. And he was completely split from the team. We'll move towards the Baron now. Here comes the blue trinket. So EDG are well aware as to what is happening, but clearlove is on the bottom side of the map. He was too low.
I don't want to discount the miracles, because I've seen plenty of miracles from both these squads, but I think this is about the time that EDG are going to start looking towards game number 2 and figuring out what they can change with their draft. Because at this point in the game, I feel like this is just a composition issue as well. Yes, they can still try to find those magical ultimates, but I feel like they overlooked the Braum pick here, especially if they weren't going to respect AJ's Ornn. It's been one of his key pivotal champions. How the Braum wall interacts with that, I think, would be a beautiful deny. So I think they look at banning away the Xayah to deny the Rakan pick, prioritizing the Braum, so maybe also even banning away the Tahm Kench, and saying, back to the drawing board. We need something better to scale up into late game, because chances are BLG are going to force us there.
And EDG, looking at this composition, you'd be like, hey, this is a pretty good comp. You know, you can control the early game. Hope's got a AD carry where he can play defensive. Mako can roam around the map. Scout gets the ability to be enabled as well. And you're like, well, this should work from EDG. But you're right, they got shut down in the early game. Now have to look towards adaptations and other things that work for them.
And when I talk about kind of the limitations of their comp, unfortunately, it is the Taliyah pick. Right now, it's so much about the utility and kind of the picks that Scout can create with the wall. But frankly, pound for pound in damage, she's not going to match Ryze.
Road was trying to look for the pick there onto clearlove, but his team wasn't really there, and a Sejuani over the wall, not the prize objective. Though we are waiting for the minion waves, and Amazing J is guiding this one towards the bottom lane, and Chieftain and the rest of his team are going to take this inhibitor once more. Amazing J is very tanky.
Oh,
Will be able to take down the tower. Here comes Dion Horn once again, and will land another knockup onto the team, but the engage hasn't quite happened yet. Here comes Road once again, gets that knockup, but the save from Mako was good. clearlove standing at the front of his team, being the bodyguard, but the inhibitor is still dead.
And there's a massive wave that's also prepared up into the top lane. It's crashing right about the red buff, but BLG playing it clean, take the 2 inhibitors, and are now rotating for the last piece.
The last piece of the puzzle, the last piece of the pie. BLG will push this one in. We've got the recall coming up from, yeah, well, you have to assume so from Rose, since he went back to base. Yeah, there you go. We're able to head back into that top lane. And Mole goes back on the mid lane duty here, just guiding in these super minion waves, and Road comes right back to his team very quickly.
Here comes Ryze. Don't follow that.
Trying to find the flank.
That was scary.
But it does force EDG back. They don't really want to get flanked by a Ryze. And in this case, that will be the 3rd inhibitor down. Double supers in every lane are about to be spawning. And EDG, they're running out of chances in game 1.
Big Brother finally on the back foot. We thought that this was going to be about clearlove's redemption, but in the end, it looks like it's about AJ and BLG's revenge. They are coming into playoffs very strong and looking to close out game 1.
This wall is just an annoyance to BLG for now. Here comes Road, gets the charm once again. The Ornhorn comes through off cooldown, finds clearlove, and he is absolutely dead. Jin Zhao rips him apart. Hope backing away, and the AD carry is caught. He disappears in an instant, and Ray by himself with no damage dealers has to wander back to his spawn pad. The best he can hope for is to try and defend his KDA at this point, but Road dives face first into the team. But with those kills, and with the Nexus going down, BLG complete their revenge for game 1.
EDG were not able to execute strong enough in the the early and mid game against BLG. Again, that duo of Chieftain and Mole, the newest additions of BLG, holding down the fort, and they couldn't contest with BLG come late game.
I will say that the first 10 minutes did look promising from EDG, though. We saw clearlove, we saw him very much neutralize the pressure that Chieftain had in the early game, but as soon as that stopped, it was basically that mid lane fight. As soon as we got to the ability for BLG to look for fights, skirmishes, fights, team fights rather, then they were able to just get themselves ahead. And
it was clearlove that was pressed forward, that was trying to force that fight, that ultimately undid EDG. Again, exposed their big flank. Mako was caught standing with his team, so when the hard CC was laid down, when Rhodes Recon found the massive knockup, when the Ornn ultimate came through, Tahm Kench wasn't able to grab people and snatch them back to safety. So the 2 veterans, the stable members of EDG, causing the problems.
It was. You know, the game really felt like Amazing J, clearlove, and Mako just all eyeing each other down through the entire game. It's like, who can one-up, who can find the better shot call? And it seems like Amazing J was coming up trumps most of the time. Look at the damage out from Jin Zhao, something you don't really get to see all the time, but when Jin Zhao is unleashed, he will put out the damage.
Like I said, one of the byproducts of having Mole and Chieftain actually accomplish an early game is that Jin Zhao doesn't come into mid-game, these 5v5 moments, at a massive gold deficit. He's even on items, and when you actually give him an even playing field, turns out he's a pretty good ADC.
And after that point around the early game, they were able to just honestly roll over that one. There was a pretty clean play coming up from BLG. It wasn't over-aggressive. Maybe Road jumped a little too far forward sometimes, but he didn't get punished for it. He's able to jump back because he has the Zaya. And overall, it was just a great game coming out of BLG. We saw many facets in how they can win games.
Crisp, clean, and I do expect a lot of draft adaptation. Like I was talking about, I think the Braum is a big pick. I think you deny the Ornn with it. And I think Tahm Kench has got to go. Get Alistar on a playmaker and match Road.
Well, that's what we think. We're about to send over to the Alice desk to see what their thoughts are heading into Game 2.
Didn't know EDG had a support member named Alistar there. Let's see if we can get Alistar in a playmaker next. She means like get Mako and something like Alistar to be the playmaker for the team and match Road in that bottom lane. Let's start with that, Clement. Pick some bans from these two teams. You were talking about it when they were drafting these champions. EDG went for 3 top lane bans and then they picked Cho'Gath. Something that doesn't seem quite right.
So I actually don't disagree with the strategy, but the strategy didn't match up with the game plan. So what happened was they actually banned 3 top laners, and then when Cho'Gath fell behind, they told him to hold the teleport just because they wanted Caitlyn to take first tower. So they didn't want a teleport advantage for BLG. And when you do that, you kind of think to yourself, wait a minute. Then I don't really need to ban these 3 champions. I just need to, get him on a tank. It doesn't really matter how the top lane goes anyway, because you're actually telling him to lose the lane just for the bottom lane. And that aside, I think the rest of the strategy was pretty sound for EDG. This is a team composition that if they get a temple lead, they can snowball to every facet of the map incredibly fast, and if they get a tower lead, they can snowball incredibly hard. The problem, however, is there's not a lot of mid-game power in that composition. When BLG gets ahead with a composition that has 5 initiations, then you pretty much have to wait on late game. And you don't have iBoy in the late game, you have Hope.
Yeah, they had a Hope in the late game, and on top of that, their mid-game power trough in that Caitlyn needs those 3 items to kind of bridge into the late game. They did that though. They had the tank in the top lane, saved the teleport for the bottom lane fight, which EDG won. Narrowly won the fight, but they also got that bottom lane out of turret. They then tried to use that gold to work around the mid lane. Mako as well as Hope were in the mid lane, teaming up with Clearlove. And Clearlove, although had a few fantastic early game ganks, looked like he was back and mechanically strong, forced a fight in the mid lane that was very questionable. That's where BLG started to swing it back in their favor.
Ooh, this is the big one. And I have to say this is a Road outplay because he did have the cleanse on himself. He wasn't blindly going forward. He had the cleanse just for the team fight. And if you watch the fight here, the big thing is the Devour was actually used from Mako early on just to get Clearlove out of a bad situation. And this is where Ornn is much better as a tank frontline compared to the Cho'Gath. He can engage from half a screen away and absolutely destroy your team. Road was nowhere to be seen, and Ray, of course, Ryze was on the roam faster than the other counterpart from EDG as well. So a bit of a mistake at the early start of the fight, and the better team fight composition coming out from BLG to wrap it up.
But like you said, credit to BLG's bottom lane, because Xinjiang and Road, they played together for a long time now. They worked so well in tandem to not only deter the pressure that came up from EDG, they had to fight against the Talia wall, they had to fight against 3 members of EDG running down mid lane trying to chase them down. At the end of the day, they escaped with next to full health, barely using any of their summoner spells or abilities, and able to turn around that fight for BLG. That was the first big fight for them, and after that it was just on ultimate after on ultimate after on ultimate. Amazing J looked really good and was initiating these fights for BLG fantastically.
And we have to talk about the second fight because this has to be the most beautiful thing I've seen all weekend. The fight between Road and Amazing J going together, comboing all of their ultimates. Just look at that, the Ornn Horn is up, everyone is lined up in a straight line for a 4-man Ornn ultimate into the Road. They get Hope before he even hits the ground, and they just clean up the fight perfectly. And this is the scary thing about BLG. Yes, they have 2 new members, but their strengths in the team fight have not weakened at all. If anything, they actually look crisper. They actually look more willing to go into the team fights, and that's just scary. They've patched their early game. They kept their late game team fighting power intact.
Exactly that. They used to be known as a team that can take you to late game and look for those game-winning late game team fights, but they always have done it from deficits. Yes. Bringing in Chieftain and Mummies, they've patched it, as you mentioned. Their early game as well as mid game look a lot better, and they're able to show that in their match here against EDG. Now, EDG, yes, they brought in Clearlove. He didn't look too bad. He forced that one fight, which kind of turned things south for EDG in the match. But Hope was a standout there. He did fine in lane, was looking okay, and they went towards a similar strategy which we saw when they used Hope last time around. Got Mako and someone who can move around the map like Tahm Kench, allowed him to group with the team and work as a 4-man unit during the mid game. However, this time BLG actually punished that. We saw a pick onto Hope in the top lane. We saw them bully him when he was left alone, and he wasn't allowed to be alone while the 4 members of EDG were trying to push fights against BLG.
Yeah, that's a big thing about EDG in their their current composition is that they've really changed up their pacing a little bit. I feel like they're going for early and late, but the previous EDG that we've seen that has been very successful has actually been all around the mid-game fight. So they're very aggressive in that terms of the phase. This time around, they actually had a composition that needed to play the mid-game with a lot more delicacy. It's about tempo advantage, and if you don't have that, then BLG's composition will actually just run you completely over.
And again, we speculate a lot of things, but at the end of the day, this is a match that doesn't matter for EDG. They don't get any points, win or lose here. It doesn't change their standing, so to speak. Only for BLG, a win gives them that extra bye. They go to second place in that Western Conference, so they could be holding their cards close to just making sure they don't show too much before they head into playoffs. Off the back of a fantastic on performance, AmazingJ is the member that picks up MVP for game number 1. Rightfully so.
3 bans were already thrown his way, but he still found a way to make it work. And I think Ornn is probably the scariest champion that you can have from AmazingJ. Sion and Ornn both left up for this man, and instead they banned a lot of the split pushers. That's a huge sign of warning for EDG. They still have a lot of weaknesses in Ray, and I don't think they're utilizing very well.
No, doesn't seem like they are. Remember, there were 3 bans thrown top lane. Ornn was not one of them, so hashtag ban Ornn or hashtag ban Ornn, because AmazingJ, this entire split, he's looked so good in that champion, shows once again against his former sister team of EDG that he can play those top lane tanks. He can be a carry on a tank, and we know that AmazingJ, this split, he can pull out those carries as well. The question is, are EDG going to change anything? Is it going to be picks or bans that are going to change for them, or do they perhaps bring in somebody like iBoy or even Haro into game number 2?
You always want to bring iBoy in. There's no reason iBoy can't do what Hope can do. And the other thing is take away initiation from BLG. If they have a lot of that, they operate too well, especially on for champions for Road.
Yeah, so let's see if they do take away any of the initiations, or if iBoy steps in for game number 2. We're going to a quick break. Back with game number 2 in just a bit.